It's 5 p.m. here in Lagos, Nigeria. Welcome to the World Today. I'm Joke Rogers. Here's what's coming up on the program. President Donald Trump proposes a U.S. takeover of the Gaza Strip during a joint press conference with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Palestine, Egypt and Saudi Arabia, as well as other countries, condemn Mr. Trump's plans for a U.S. takeover of the Gaza Strip. And Mexico's National Guard troops arrive at the U.S. border as part of a deal to pause trade tariffs. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the program. U.S. President Donald Trump has declared that he wants the U.S. to take over Gaza on a long-term basis and to develop it into the Riviera of the Middle East. Describing Gaza as a demolition site, he says America would remove unexploded bombs and revive the Gaza economy. Mr. Trump was speaking at a White House news conference with Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu as his guest.
The U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip, and we will do a job with it, too. We'll own it and be responsible for dismantling all of the dangerous unexploded bombs and other weapons on the site, level the site and get rid of the destroyed buildings, level it out, create an economic development that will supply unlimited numbers of jobs and housing for the people of the area. Do a real job, do something different. Just can't go back. If you go back, it's going to end up the same way it has for 100 years. I'm hopeful that this ceasefire could be the beginning of a larger and more enduring peace that will end the bloodshed and killing once and for all. With the same goal in mind, my administration has been moving quickly to restore trust in the alliance and rebuild American strength throughout the region. And we've really done that. We're a respected nation again. Today, I also took action to restore a maximum pressure policy on the Iranian regime. And we will once again enforce the most aggressive possible sanctions, drive Iranian oil exports to zero, and diminish the regime's capacity to fund terror throughout the region and throughout the world.
Well, swift reactions have met President Trump's proposal, with the leaders of Egypt and Jordan flatly rejecting the idea, and a joint statement from several Middle Eastern countries and organizations warning that the move could threaten the region's stability and undermine prospects for peace and coexistence amongst its people. After Mr. Trump's comments last night, Saudi Arabia reasserted its firm and unwavering position that it will not establish ties with Israel without the creation of a Palestinian state. The Palestinian group Hamas says President Trump's remarks will pour fuel on the fire in the Middle East, condemning his proposed U.S. takeover of the Gaza in the strongest terms. The group is calling on the American administration and President Trump to walk back from what it calls irresponsible remarks that contradict international law and the basics of rights of Palestinian people on their land. The president and wider leadership of the Palestinian Authority has also responded strongly, rejecting Donald Trump's suggestion. In addition, the international community has roundly condemned Mr. Trump's comments on a possible U.S. takeover of Gaza, with many stressing the importance of a two-state solution that can guarantee long-term peace for Israelis and Palestinians. Joining us now is Rotem Cohen, a businessman and political commentator in Kfar Saba, Israel. A pleasure having you on the program today.
Good to be on your program. Thank you very much.
Let's begin by asking of your thoughts on President Trump's comments on the U.S. taking over Gaza.
Gaza at the moment is not a suitable place for living. It's a war zone, and it will take probably 10 to 15 years to rehabilitate and to build again Gaza, and an endless amount of money that will be poured over there. And the Palestinians who live in Gaza, they deserve a better life. They shouldn't live in a life-threatening area. They deserve more.
How are other Israelis and, Gazans reacting to this comment by the U.S. president, and also the reactions by, other countries and international community?
A majority of Israelis obviously are happy as danger will not come again from that area. And I'm sure the Gazans are not happy, obviously, because they've lost everything they have under the Hamas regime. It is a difficult situation, but people see there's no other way but that way.
And many international leaders are calling, for a two-state solution in the Middle East crisis that has long been in, place. What do you think?
The Palestinians refused over the years, for two-state solution. They've been offered 90% of the area, the disputed areas, which have been negotiated by the Americans, by the Europeans. Maybe it's time to think different, to come with a different approach, and I think that's what President Trump is trying to do right now, to come with a different approach.
It seems that, the Palestinians, the people of Gaza might be the ones on the losing end again, even after a ceasefire and, the bombardment of Gaza has ceased for now. Mr. Trump's proposal has been flatly rejected, especially by Egypt and Jordan, where he's saying that they should be resettled. Many say that this is in contrast with international law.
I'm not familiar with international law, but I can tell you that Mexico and Canada refused also to take refugees, and now they accepted it in less than 24 hours. I believe that it's the right thing to do, and they must find a way. Those people deserve better. They deserve better conditions than what they have right now.
But how can, the people help themselves? It's obvious that, most of the people from that area, from the Strip, cannot do the rebuilding alone. The President Trump has suggested that, it may take up to 10 to 15 years for everything to get back to normal, if it does get back to normal. So what kind of help, can be offered to the people without expecting something in return from them?
Gaza is not suitable for living, that's for sure. The U.S. are offering, and they offered a lot of aid to the people in Gaza. I don't think pouring more money, blindly in that area could solve the problem. What could solve the problem is a real desire to take an example, to buy as an example, and to do the same. That's the only way. It has to come from the inside. It has to come from them.
And how can the peace between Israel and Palestine be sustained and be settled once and for all?
I think it's too early to discuss peace after the 7th of October. It's still very fresh memory for us. We live it day by day. The hostages are still being held by these terrorists in Gaza, and the conditions are day by day becoming worse for our hostages. I want to remind that the majority of them are civilians, not soldiers that simply live their life. So it's too early for us. And for me personally, and I guess I'm speaking for many people in Israel, if they let's say, if the terror organization will not control Gaza, it will be easier for us to come and sit to the negotiating table, because all we want is peace.
Right, and finally to you, I know that it is quite a touchy subject there. For the hostages that are being released, on the Israeli side, I don't know if you know any of them. We had such a very busy week last week when they were released in batches. I don't know if you know any of them. How are they doing with the recovery, with the, coping with the trauma of being in captivity for so long?
The one that I know, his name is Omer Shemtov, is the son, is the elder son of one of my best friends, and I know him since he was watching Teletubbies, and I know him very well. I know his father and his mother, and they're fighting for him day by day. They're suffering, and it's unbearable to see the situation. I don't know any of the hostages that came back last week, in the last couple of weeks, but we feel them and we see what they've been suffered over there. It's insane. It's absolutely, no one deserves such conditions and such behavior. It is very touchy subject, and it's very personal and very emotional, because don't forget, Israel, it's a small place. There is the link to someone who knows someone, or someone from the far distance family or the close distance family that we know. It's touching every one of us. That's why it is very hard, and we all praying and supporting, first of all, to bring them all back. And we are willing to pay the price for that. And we need to pay the price. We can argue about the price. We can argue if it is right or wrong, but we are all here for them, and we are giving them the privacy they need to recover the horror of over 170 days for some of them, and over 480 days for some of them that came in the last batch.
Right, Rotem, I'd like to thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
In other news now, the U.S. Postal Service says it has stopped accepting parcels from mainland China and Hong Kong until further notice. The move comes after rules came into force in the U.S. which closed a loophole that allowed small packages worth $800 or less to be sent to America without paying taxes or fees. The U.S. Postal Service said letters will not be affected by the suspension, but declined to offer a reason for the decision. Chinese retailers such as online giants Shein and Temu have used this tax exemption to ship low-value packages duty-free to the U.S. and have benefited from similar rules in the U.K. and the European Union to reach millions of customers. The explosion of parcels being shipped under the loophole has prompted increased scrutiny in recent years. While all retailers use the exemption, those who sell fast fashion and cheap goods have seen their sales soar. Mexican troops have arrived at the country's northern border with the United States in Tijuana as part of a recent agreement to avert impending U.S. tariffs aiming to crack down on fentanyl trafficking and illegal migration across the border. The National Guard troops arrived at an airbase waiting for orders and offloading their personal items. Mexico has reportedly initiated the deployment of approximately 10,000 soldiers who are being stationed in key areas known for high rates of illicit activities, including the border states of Baja California, Sonora, and Tamaulipas. The agreement was reached after discussions between U.S. President Donald Trump and his Mexican counterparts. The U.S. imposed 25% tariffs on Mexican imports on Saturday, citing concerns of the rise in fentanyl being moved over the border, as well as the numbers of undocumented Mexicans in the U.S. However, President Trump has agreed to pause the imposition of tariffs pending Mexico's commitment to improving border security. In the meantime, a U.S. deportation flight carrying just over 100 Indian nationals out of 18,000 accused of entering the country illegally has landed in the state of Punjab. The military aircraft, which left Texas late on Tuesday, is now in the city of Amritsar, where authorities say they have put measures in place to process the deportees. President Donald Trump has made mass deportation of undocumented foreign nationals a key policy. Mr. Trump has said India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi had assured him that the country will do what is right in accepting U.S. deportations. Authorities in Punjab say they have set up special counters to receive the deportees, adding that the individuals will be treated in a friendly manner. There were 104 Indian deportees on the flight, and they will be processed separately from regular passengers before boarding buses to their home states. On Tuesday, UN agencies offered a dire assessment about the global impact of deep cuts to grassroots humanitarian funding by the new U.S. administration and reiterated calls for Washington to retain its position as a global aid leader. The development follows the pause in billions of dollars of funding by the U.S. administration to nearly all U.S. foreign aid programs, pending a 90-day review. Pio Smith from the UN's Sexual Reproductive Health Agency, UNFPA, says the agency has suspended services funded by U.S. grants that provide a lifeline for women and girls in crisis, including in South Asia. He further warns that between 2025 and 2028 in Afghanistan, the absence of U.S. support will likely result in 1,200 additional maternal deaths and 109,000 additional unintended pregnancies.
On 24 January, the U.S. administration paused nearly all U.S. foreign aid programs pending a 90-day review. In response, UNFPA has suspended services funded by U.S. grants that provide a lifeline for women and girls in crises, including in South Asia. The letters that we received are similar to what other UN agencies have received, we are, like I mentioned earlier, engaging, trying to find more clarity from the US government and hope to get more details in particular as to why our programs are being impacted, particularly those which we would hope would be exempt under the humanitarian rubric. If I just take the example of Afghanistan, between 2025 and 2028, we estimate that the absence of US support will result in 1,200 additional maternal deaths and 109,000 additional unintended pregnancies.
We have, of course, been in close contact with all our offices around the world, who are also on their part in close contact with the US embassies that are in their countries, seeking more clarity about what this all means.
The point is really looking at continuing this work together and listening also to if there are constructive criticisms and points that we need to review. The Secretary General said it in his statement. Of course, we want to work on this and continue this relationship of trust.
Welcome back. Large swathes of Jenin refugee camp in the occupied West Bank have been completely destroyed following a series of controlled detonations by the Israeli security forces. The UN Agency for Palestine Refugees made this known, with Communications Director Juliette Touma telling reporters in Geneva that all 30,000 residents have left the camp as of Tuesday morning. Speaking from Amman, she describes catastrophic scenes with some 100 buildings destroyed or heavily damaged by the detonations, and the camp's residents had endured the impossible.
Large parts of the camp were completely destroyed in a series of detonations by the Israeli forces. It is estimated that 100 houses were destroyed or heavily damaged. The residents of this particular camp have endured the impossible. All residents of the camp, according to our reports, have left the camp as of this morning. This detonation that happened on Sunday was when children were supposed to go back to school in that camp. When it comes to UNRWA, 13 schools in the camp and the surrounding areas continue to be closed. That affected 5,000 kids in that area. The West Bank, where our teams are staying and delivering services, including primary healthcare and education, are ongoing. Schools and clinics remain open, including in occupied East Jerusalem, providing services to refugees. In the West Bank, when it comes to schools, they've reopened on Sunday after a school break. We are seeing attendance in UNRWA schools at over 80 to 85%. We're seeing a steady increase in the number of patients visiting the UNRWA health centers in the West Bank. For example, in one of our clinics in East Jerusalem, we have recorded more than 400 patients a day.
Elsewhere, Swedish police have given an update on the mass shooting that happened on a school campus in Örebro on Tuesday. 10 people plus the gunman were killed. Police say they're still trying to work out the gunman's motive. The gunman shot at police during the attack. Well, it's not known if he killed himself. The shooting happened at a school for adults on a site that had children's schools, 6 school buildings plus a restaurant. Well, in Belgium, police are also looking for armed men after a shooting was reported outside a metro station in the center of Brussels. CCTV footage broadcast by local media showed at least 2 men wearing balaclavas and carrying weapons of the entrance of Clemenceau station in the Belgian capital early on Wednesday. There was also an exchange of fire at about 6:15 local time. Spokeswoman for the Brussels police, Sarah Frederick, said the suspects fled into the metro station and may still be in the tunnels. Clemenceau station has been shut and has the nearby Brussels Midi station, which also serves as the terminal for Eurostar trains. 2 metro lines through the center of Brussels have also been suspended from, which is close to the European Parliament. The International Atomic Energy Agency Director General Rafael Mariano Grossi has visited Ukraine's Kyiviska substation. He says nuclear energy has been the backbone that has sustained Ukraine's economy through the hardest any country can have, which is war. Mr. Grossi is in Ukraine to assess damage to key electricity infrastructure that's critical to the country's nuclear safety. This is the 11th mission to Ukraine, led personally by the Director General since the conflict began almost 3 years ago. He was accompanied by Minister of Energy of Ukraine and the Energoatom chairman.
The focus of my visit this time is to see and to assess personally the situation at in general, the substations, in particular this one, we've chosen Kyiviska because of its importance in terms of the functioning of the grid here in Ukraine. It has a strategic value, and as we see, it has been damaged quite significantly. And at the same time, it's important, the minister was explaining to me and the head of the plant as well, the kinds of work that had been undertaken in order to preserve the stability of the grid. As we just saw the protective shelter that is being built here and the replacement transformers that are going to be put into operations. We have been visiting, in fact, nine stations that are critical for the functioning and the safe functioning of the nuclear power plants. And of course, the situation is quite dire. We should not, I think, hide the fact, and as you can see behind us, this infrastructure has been degraded. A nuclear accident can come with a direct attack on a nuclear power plant, but it can also be the result of a disruption in the power grid. And this substation is a critical part of that network that you have here in Ukraine. So when a substation like this is affected or is prevented from operating in a normal way, then you can have a very serious situation.
The United Nations is sounding the alarm over escalating violence and humanitarian needs in Haiti, where armed clashes and natural disasters have displaced thousands and placed children at increasing risk. UN spokesperson Stéphane Dujarric told reporters in New York that, according to UNICEF, approximately 1 in 8 children in the country is now currently displaced, according to the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. Fighting between security forces and armed groups on the outskirts of Port-au-Prince triggered another wave of displacement.
The Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs tells us that violent clashes this week between security forces and armed groups on the outskirts of the capital Port-au-Prince resulted in another wave of people trying to flee. Our colleagues at the International Organization for Migration say that more than 1,600 men, women, and children have now been displaced. 2/3 of them have taken refuge with host families, while more than 500 are now living in 3 newly established displacement sites. Our humanitarian partners tell us the situation for children in Haiti continues to be dire. The number of children internally displaced in the country has increased by nearly 50% since September, surging to more than 500,000 children. You'll recall that UNICEF says approximately 1 in 8 children in Haiti is now currently displaced. Some 3 million children need humanitarian assistance, including 1.2 million boys and girls in the capital, Port-au-Prince. There's been a 70% increase in the recruitment of children by gangs over the past year, with up to 50% of gang members now estimated to be children in Haiti. That's what UNICEF is telling us. At the same time, the forced returns of Haitians continues to drive up humanitarian needs. Nearly 15,000 were returned from the Dominican Republic in the first 2 weeks of January alone, adding to the 200,000 people who were returned from across the region in all of last year. In addition, natural disasters also creating issues across Haiti. OCHA says since November of last year, nearly 330,000 people were impacted by floods across 6 of the Haiti's departments. The floods claimed dozens of lives and damaged nearly 50,000 homes. This year, we are appealing for $908 million to help 3.9 million people in Haiti. We urge the international community to scale up its support so that we and our humanitarian partners can support the people of Haiti.
Elsewhere, 4 Iranian Navy vessels have arrived in Sharjah's Khalid port. The vessels arrived for a 3-day visit to the UAE, marking the first of its kind as part of a series of planned meetings between the countries to enhance maritime security and ensure freedom of navigation in the region. At the reception ceremony by the National Guard Command, Iranian officers exchanged handshakes with their UAE counterparts before posing for pictures. Iran's local media reports that 4 IRGC Navy units with 150 personnel, along with Iranian Army maritime units with 50 personnel, were deployed to a 3-day mission led by Admiral Ramadan Abdullahi to bolster mutual cooperation and capabilities, as well as to promote the country's defense capabilities. Cadets and naval officers will participate in this visit to acquire field experience, observe operational and training capabilities of the UAE Navy forces, and review the capabilities of its neighbor country. And a joint contingent from Bulgaria, Hungary, Austria, and Romania has officially begun monitoring the Bulgarian-Turkish border following Bulgaria's entry into the Schengen zone earlier this year. At the Kapitan Andreevo border crossing, police vehicles and officers were deployed at the crossing point with enhanced security measures, including fences, armed servicemen, and surveillance cameras. Later, an official ceremony was held attended by the interior ministers of the four nations. Meanwhile, the Hungarian and Romanian counterparts stressed the country's needs for cooperation in protecting the border, noting that the measures would serve the best for citizens' interests. The Livadia Palace in the Republic of Crimea, Russian Federation, is marking the 80th anniversary of the historic Yalta Conference. It was a meeting between the leaders of the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Soviet Union during World War II that discussed the future of Europe and Germany after the war. Caretakers of the palace say it was the place where the fate of the world was literally decided.
Staff at the Livadia Palace Museum are preparing to commemorate the 80th anniversary of the Yalta Conference, where the leaders of the Allied powers, Joseph Stalin, Franklin Roosevelt, and Winston Churchill, met in February 1945 to shape the post-World War II world order. The museum's White Hall is where the historic negotiations took place, housing archive photos, the original round table, and nameplates of the leaders.
The White Hall of the Livadia Palace is the place where the fate of the world was literally decided from 4th to 11th February 1945. It was here, at the round table.
Taking place in the Livadia Palace near Yalta in Crimea, the conference aimed to address the post-war reorganization of Europe and establish a framework for lasting peace. Mr. Oransky highlighted Stalin's decision to host the conference in Yalta to show the Allies the devastation caused by German occupation.
The Yalta Conference secured peace for the world for the first time. As US President Franklin Roosevelt said at the time of the negotiations, our task is to secure peace for at least 50 years, and most importantly, they did it. And 80 years after the negotiations between Roosevelt, the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and Stalin here at the Livadia Palace, the peace is still there, despite the challenges that modernity already dictates. Despite all the difficulties and disagreements, they managed to find a common language and draw up agreements which they implemented, and which 8 decades later are still relevant and essential.
The Yalta Conference resulted in key decisions, including the establishment of the United Nations and principles for post-war cooperation. The creation of the UN was a significant achievement, providing a forum for international diplomacy and conflict resolution.
Thousands of residents have fled Santorini after earthquakes were recorded near the Greek island for a 4th consecutive day. According to officials, more than 11,000 people have left the area, with around 7,000 departing by ferry and 4,000 people leaving by air. Hundreds of earthquakes have rocked the island, the strongest of which was a magnitude 5 tremor on Tuesday. Major damage has not been reported on the island so far. However, officials are taking some precautionary measures. Authorities have closed schools and warned against large indoor gatherings as Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis is urging for calm. Well, locals have been left stranded after heavy downpours swamped the streets of Brazil's Sao Paulo over the weekend, causing devastating floods and landslides. Locals are wading through flooded streets, carrying bikes and supplies through neighborhoods submerged in water. Volunteers are also distributing food supplies and water bottles to displaced residents. This comes as severe rainfall and thunderstorms in January left around 1.5 million people homeless, battering the city's infrastructure, roads and subway system. According to local media, the city received a month's rainfall in just a few hours. Here in Africa, Congolese in the diaspora are protesting for their motherland, calling on the international community to do more in helping the conflict. We are seeing protests in Paris, Brussels, as thousands demand an end to the conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo.
In Europe, hundreds of protesters marched in Paris in support of the Democratic Republic of Congo, denouncing Rwanda's alleged support for the M23 militant group and demanding action from the international community. Demonstrations holding DRC flags, set off fireworks and burned Rwandan flags, calling for an international response to DRC. This protester accuses the West of being complicit.
Where is the European Union? Where is France? They are the first. Where are the United States? They hurried to help Ukraine. They sent billions in weapons to Ukraine. What about the Congo? Where are you? It's over there, because you're complicit.
People die every day. Every day, every day, every day. But international communities, they see it but they don't say anything because they know that their interests are at stake. That's why we came, to denounce, denounce, denounce. As we saw with Ukraine, everyone was behind Ukraine. But the DRC has been abandoned as a country, so we're abandoned. That's why we came here, to show people that we've been abandoned.
In Brussels, Belgium, hundreds of members of the Congolese diaspora flocked to protest outside the headquarters of the European Union in Brussels, accusing the bloc of complicity in the alleged Rwanda-backed militant offensive on the Democratic Republic of Congo's Goma. Protesters marching, chanting and holding DRC flags, as well as placards and banners, condemned the EU, saying the bloc is behind everything that's happening in the Congo over its financing and relations with Rwanda.
We're here to tell the European Union to end this contract they've signed with Rwanda for raw materials. Because as everyone knows, by now, there are no raw materials in Rwanda. Everything comes from Congo. These are blood minerals, and we don't want that anymore. We're also here to support all those who are in the war zone, those who were killed, all our soldiers. The population of Goma has now been without power and water for 5 days already. And even so, the medical services are no longer able to reach them.
We've come here to the European Union to tell the members of the European Parliament here at the headquarters of the European Union that they are the ones behind everything that's happening in the Congo. The financing of 20 million to the Rwandan army clearly shows that these people are the ones behind it. So they are the fencemen. They are the reeking European Union. So we are warning you, the European Union, the European parliamentarians, we are warning you because we use our genes. We are using all the means necessary to get you out of the Congo.
The UN reports that at least 700 people have been killed in the intense fighting in Goma, including around a dozen UN peacekeepers. Goma is the largest city in eastern DRC and the capital of North Kivu province. The conflict involves around 100 armed groups in the region rich in gold, cassiterite, coltan, cobalt and diamonds. Last year, the UN reported that the number of internally displaced persons in the DRC has risen to 7.2 million, making it one of the largest displaced populations globally.
Welcome back to the World Today. Staying with the issues concerning the DRC, Congolese community in South Africa have held a mass protest in Pretoria as well, condemning Rwanda's alleged support for the M23 rebel group and the escalating conflict in the country. The demonstration also honored the lives of soldiers, including 14 South African National Defence Force troops who died in the crisis. Protesters marched to the European Union delegation, chanting slogans and holding banners accusing Rwanda of destabilizing the region. They are demanding the immediate withdrawal of Rwandan troops from the DRC and rejecting calls for a ceasefire, which they believe would allow foreign forces to remain in the country.
I'm from Congo. I'm Congolese. I want to tell the European Union to tell Kagame to withdraw his troops from our land immediately and without any condition. We don't want ceasefire, because ceasefire means that they will be standing in our country, they will be staying there waiting for an outcome of whatever talks is taking place out there. We want the EU to tell Kagame to withdraw all his troops from our country and tell the M23 to go to a designated camp.
Congolese, we are not happy with what is happening in our country. The European Union, they are busy supporting Kagame, giving him the strong gun to come and support M23 to kill Congolese people, to rape our ladies and to take our mining.
I saw through the news, they say they want to ceasefire. We don't want to ceasefire. If they want to fight, we'll fight. Mzee Kabila disait the war will finish where it started. Kagame started this war. We're living in peacefully. He come and put us into fight. We'll fight until to the last minute. If he wants to ceasefire, he must leave our country and fuck off.
Still in South Africa, but away from the DRC crisis, the chairman of the House Committee on Diaspora Affairs in Nigeria, Bamidele Salam, says Nigeria's partnership with BRICS offers significant opportunities for economic growth, infrastructure development, and increased global influence. Mr. Salam believes this partnership could bolster Nigeria's influence in international economic discussions and decision-making processes. He made these remarks during a special coverage of the Nigerian Community Town Hall meeting in Johannesburg, South Africa, hosted by the Nigerian Citizens Association, South Africa. South Africa correspondent Innocent Samusa reports.
Executive members of Nigerian Community Association and key stakeholders have convened to address pressing issues affecting Nigerians in the diaspora. Key topics on the agenda include police brutality, targeted Nigerian businesses, and the challenge surrounding permit acquisition.
We have the issues that are facing us, which are issues of our passports. And this is one of the reasons I am putting down a document that our honorable chairman on the committee on the House for Diaspora to go home with, that our citizens here are being frustrated because they cannot afford to pay for our national identity passport.
While Nigerians face challenges in the diaspora, the chairman of the House Committee on Diaspora Affairs Nigeria, Bamidele Salam, emphasizes that Nigeria's inclusion in BRICS highlights its growing role in global economic alliances as Africa's largest economy and most populous nation.
Excellent. You know, this issue actually came up in an earlier meeting I had today with one of the top government officials in South Africa here. And, you know, the coming on board of Nigeria means a lot of opening up of a bigger market. Nigeria is the largest market in Africa, the most populous black nation on earth, and a country with a very resilient, very productive, very innovative population. And I believe very strongly that with our involvement with the BRICS now, apart from creating a bigger market, we'll also be opening up a large part of the sub-Saharan Africa, especially the West African sub-region, to the international community. And then Nigeria has one of the largest gas reserve in the world. In fact, we are like the third largest gas reserve in the world. And most of these reserves have not been exploited at all. I believe, and this is the future of energy. The transition is, towards cleaner energy.
Nigeria is a great country, and I also want us to believe in ourselves. We might be having challenges at this point in time, but I'm very sure and convinced that in the next few years, we'll get it right. We'll keep on encouraging ourselves wherever we are across the globe. And by the grace of God, I'm sure that in the next few years, some of the challenges we're having will be resolved, and we'll get back there again.
Meanwhile, some delegates emphasizes that the real impact will depend on how effectively Nigeria utilizes the partnership to tackle domestic challenges and align with BRICS' broader objectives. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Samosa, Channels Television News.
And for millions of South African children, lacking proper footwear is more than a discomfort. It's a barrier to education, dignity, and opportunity. Gerald Nomlala is the founder of the Cassie Angels Foundation, an institution with a goal to transform lives, one pair of school shoes at a time.
Gerald Nomala knows the struggle of not having school shoes firsthand. That's what inspired him to start Cassie Angels Foundation.
I lost 2 years of my primary school years because I didn't have school shoes. So as I grew up, I decided to buy shoes for strangers, taking from my experience. So far, I've given away 65,000 pairs of school shoes, and I need to give 1 million pairs of school shoes in my campaign.
The media team caught up with him when he delivered shoes and food to Zola Business High School in Cape Town, where many children face the daily challenge of attending school barefoot. The principal of the school, who is delighted at the turn of events, sees the impact daily.
As a principal, it's something that is very disturbing when you see learners coming to school without shoes. It's affecting tuition, the academic results for the learner. So it's something that is painful as the principal and the teachers find that most of the time they are not happy.
By providing shoes, Cassie Angels offers a pathway from crime towards a brighter future. But the initiative goes beyond footwear, providing uniforms, books, and mentorship to help children stay in school.
Every kid wants to be somebody when they grow up. They want to be doctors, they want to be nurses, they want to be, pilots. So providing a pair of school shoes for them means a lot. It means I can go to school, I can be somebody. Because we don't just hand over shoes, we also mentor them, guide them the way forward.
Gerald Nomala estimates that 7 million children in South Africa attend school without shoes. And for 10%, the shame and discomfort lead to dropping out. But he is contributing his quota to reduce the number of dropouts.
Let's head to Mexico for the Candelaria festival, which celebrates the day the Christ child is presented at the temple 40 days after his birth. An iconic river procession is on for the Lady of Candlemas festival in Mexico's Tlacotalpan.
Mexicans and tourists gather in Tlacotalpan to celebrate the vibrant Virgin de la Candelaria festivities at the sanctuary of the Candelaria. The Fiesta de la Candelaria, also known as Candlemas, marks the biblical presentation of the baby Jesus at the temple in Jerusalem. The celebration is a blend of religious devotion and cultural tradition, drawing crowds from near and far.
I brought my child to be blessed and to pray for health and work so that we do not lack employment. Devotees assemble at the church before joining a grand procession.
They carry the statue of the Virgin of Candelaria, adorned with a golden crown and draped in an elegant white gown, cradling the baby Jesus in one arm atop a floral platform.
Es la Virgen de Candelaria, pero en realidad representa la divinidad del elemento agua, que es Chalchitlicue o Chalchitlicueye. Esa es la realidad. Entonces aquí es un lugar muy místico, un lugar muy sagrado, porque abajo del subterráneo se encuentran cosas muy maravillosas que fueron hundidas hace miles de años.
The highlight of festivities is the traditional river journey along the Papaloapan River. The Virgin is placed on a ferry decorated with colorful balloons, accompanied by dozens of motorboats filled with worshippers.
All year round, it is in its niche, upstairs, and every year they pass it on, blessing these holidays. And now all Catholics believe in it because it performs a miracle for us, and it's the most beautiful thing there is.
And finally, people have gathered for the vibrant Krishna Holi festival in Auckland, marking the annual celebration of colors. At the Hare Krishna temple in Kunil, large crowds dance and celebrate as colorful powders are thrown into the air. Prime Minister Christopher Luxon also joins in the festivities, interacting with participants and spraying attendees with vibrant dyes. The Krishna Holi Festival is one of the largest in New Zealand, drawing thousands each year. This year's celebration featured a lively day of color throwing, dancing, music, and vegetarian and vegan food in a family-friendly environment, all for free to the attendees.
And I want you to know that we know how hard you work. You often take on 2 or 3 jobs to get that first house, that first business, and you are a great role model to other New Zealanders, and that's why...
Quite a colourful festival indeed. Well, that's our show today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Jacka Rogers.